Fabio visits his boss, a drug baron named Don Luis, to inform him of his intention to leave the gang. Don Luis pretends to be okay with it, but when Fabio leaves, he sends Marco and a gang of armed men to kill Fabio and his family, as no one dares to leave the cartel. Fabio, suspicious of Don Luis' unconditional acceptance of him leaving, immediately heads home to take his family out of the country. Upon arriving, he hands his 9-year-old daughter, Cataleya, a microchip and a piece of paper with an address, instructing her to go there if anything goes wrong and she finds herself alone. Soon, Don Luis' men arrive and kill Fabio's guards who are watching outside as the family prepares to leave. They make their way upstairs and murder Fabio and his wife, Alicia, while Cataleya watches in tears. Afterward, Marco sits with Cataleya, introduces himself, and explains that her father has something belonging to Don Luis, the microchip, and demands it. As Marco extends his hand, Cataleya grabs a knife hidden under the table and stabs his hand. She immediately escapes through the window, swallows the microchip, and begins running as fast as her legs can carry her, with Marco and his men in pursuit. Cataleya somehow makes it to the US Embassy, vomits out the microchip, and hands it over to the person in charge. It turns out the microchip contains evidence of Don Luis' illegal activities. Later, an official accompanies Cataleya to America. At the airport terminal, she asks to use the restroom. After waiting longer than expected, the official goes to check on her and discovers that Cataleya has escaped through the window. With the money given to her by the officials, she finds her way to Chicago. There, she locates her uncle Emilio, and they embrace in tears. Emilio takes her home. The following day, at breakfast, Cataleya tells her uncle she wants to become a killer and requests his help. Emilio enrolls Cataleya in school, but she isn't happy. She tells Emilio that school has nothing to offer her, as she has already expressed her desire to be a killer. Emilio explains that he wants her to be a smart killer and emphasizes that she can only learn intelligence in school, otherwise, she risks an early death. 15 years later, a car crashes into a police car with 2 officers inside. It turns out to be Cataleya pretending to be drunk to get arrested. As planned, the officers arrest her and take her to their office, where she is charged with driving on the wrong side of the road and damaging police property. She is then taken to a cell. Cataleya's target, Gennaro Rizzo, is brought into the station overnight. During the night, Cataleya skillfully makes her way to Rizzo's cell, kills him, and returns to her own cell unnoticed. The next day, Cataleya is released. She calls Emilio to report a successful mission. Meanwhile, the investigation into Rizzo's murder reveals that 22 murders over the last 4 years have had the same drawing of a Cataleya flower found on Rizzo's body. Cataleya leaves a drawing of a Cataleya flower on the bodies of her victims, all the men connected to Don Luis, hoping that he will receive her message one day so she can avenge her parents' death. Media outlets broadcast these strange deaths, making it possible for Don Luis and his men to learn about them. Emilio discovers that Cataleya has been targeting men linked to Don Luis and schedules a meeting with her at the laundry. Emilio pleads with her to put an end to it, as she is endangering their lives. However, Cataleya refuses, as she has made up her mind to avenge her parents' death. Cataleya picks up her passport and moves to the Caribbean for her next victim. Upon arrival, she drops a Cataleya flower on the shark tank enclosure, leaving it open to lure her victim to that spot. As the man picks up the flower and examines it, Cataleya shows up and fires shots at him, causing him to fall into the shark tank enclosure where the sharks rip him apart. Cataleya retrieves the flower and drops it into the pool of water. Cataleya, having given out enough information that she is the one behind the murders, prompts Don Luis to ask Marco to handle it. Marco and his gang set out in search of her and her family. Cataleya visits her painter and quasi-boyfriend, Danny Delaunay, who knows almost nothing about her. He only knows her as Jennifer. Cataleya spends the night with him, and in the morning, while she is still asleep, Danny takes a photo of her. When Cataleya wakes up, she realizes she's late for a meeting with Emilio and rushes out. When she meets with him, Emilio is furious with her for killing 8 people during her last mission, one of whom was his friend. They have a heated exchange. Emilio tells her not to bother looking for them again and hands her a photograph of her and her parents, then walks away. This deeply affects Cataleya, and she breaks down in tears. In another scene, Danny and his friend Ryan talk about Cataleya. Danny expresses his feelings for her but sadly admits he doesn't know much about her, only having a half picture of her. Ryan discreetly sends the picture to his cop sister-in-law to run a check on it and see if they can gather any information about Cataleya. While running a check on the picture, FBI Special Agent James Ross, who has been trying to figure out the person behind the murders, receives an incoming transmission traceable to Chicago, Illinois. While Cataleya is on a call with Danny, her exact location is detected, and Agent Ross sends a SWAT team to pick her up. Cataleya, still on the phone with Danny, becomes agitated when he mentions that he was looking at her picture before her call came in. She checks her security control systems and discovers that the SWAT team is already at the building. While they are trying to find their way upstairs, she quickly gathers a few things and escapes through a planned route. She then visits Emilio, only to find him and his family dead. She breaks down in tears. Agent Ross comes back home to discover Cataleya is in his house. Cataleya tells him she needs information on Don Lewis, or she will kill his family members one after another. Agent Ross visits CIA agent Steve Richard, who has been protecting Don Lewis from the law in exchange for his cooperation with American authorities. After Agent Ross makes his intentions known, Agent Richard refuses to help him get Don Lewis's location. As Agent Ross makes his way out of his office, Cataleya calls him and sends a message to Agent Richard through him, threatening to kill him if he doesn't comply. Seeing that Agent Richard is hesitant, Cataleya fires a shot at a photograph in his office. This quickly forces Agent Richard to give up Don Lewis's address. Cataleya goes to Emilio's friend's garage where she has her weapons stored. She grabs some weapons, and as she is about to leave, her dogs call her attention, prompting her to take them along as she heads out. Meanwhile, Don Lewis, knowing that Cataleya is still alive and will be coming after them, organizes his men to plan how to kill her. While they are preparing, Cataleya launches an attack and wipes out the entire gang except Marco and Don Lewis. Later, Cataleya locates Marco and the two engage in a fierce battle with bare hands, after which she emerges victorious. Don Lewis, noticing that everywhere has become quiet, comes out from hiding and tries to escape in his vehicle, unaware that Cataleya's specially trained attack dogs are inside it. He drives off, and Cataleya picks up Marco's phone to call Don Lewis. When he answers and hears Cataleya's voice, he threatens to find her and kill her. With the phone on speaker, Cataleya then orders her dogs to attack and eat him. Next, Danny is being interrogated by Agent Ross about Cataleya. Feeling exhausted, Danny requests coffee. While Agent Ross goes to get it, Danny receives a call from Cataleya, but before they can trace the call, she hangs up. Danny is allowed to go home, while Cataleya boards a bus to an unknown destination. For more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in our next video.